Hey guys, it's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe, and I wanted to do a quick video talking about some arcade ports that the Sega CD had gotten over the years when the Sega CD was obviously released. This was an idea given to me by my good buddy Kris, who has his own channel, Decade Matter. Check him out, great guy. He's got some weird shit on there too, but he's a nice guy, I promise. So, I'm going to tell you which ones I really enjoyed and, just talk to you a little about each game from what I remember. I haven't played a lot of these recently, or super recently, but I did want to just chat with you about them. So, one of the main ones that everyone talks about, and I think is probably the best, 16-bit rendition, and keep in mind, this was before people were really using computers to emulate games. You weren't going to use MAME, you weren't going to play arcade games and stuff like that at home, or have an Xbox Live or PlayStation service to download arcade perfect games. You were playing the ports that were given to you, or sold to you. So one of the ones everyone talks about is Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has great sound, because it is all disc-based, so keep that in mind. Everything on Sega CD sounds usually really good compared to something on, let's say, the Genesis or the Super Nintendo even though the Super Nintendo had a better sound chip than the Genesis, though some will argue that because they do like the way the Genesis beeps and boops. Mortal Kombat's a great game. In terms of the colors on Sega CD games, the colors are still limited, so it's not like you have some vast array of colors compared to the Genesis. If I remember, it's either the same amount as the Genesis and they're both together, or it's just period the same amount of colors as the Genesis. I don't recall which it was, but great port. If you've played Mortal Kombat, this is like the definitive version you should play if you have a Sega CD and you're looking for your Mortal Kombat fix. As I said, a lot of this stuff, well, some of this stuff is now out on, downloading services, but sounds great, looks great, has all the cool features. Great game. Keep in mind, since we are talking about a 1X CD-ROM drive on this thing, there are going to be load times, and most likely load times that the new generation will not appreciate, but the older generation may just be like, not so bad. So, another one that everyone talks about is NBA Jam. One of the things with NBA Jam was the game was always great. Still is. It's very fun. It's probably my favorite sports or basketball game. Well, sports game, maybe Blood Bowl's up there for me too, but that's more like turn-based, that's different. So, this also has all the great sounds and voiceover work. Looks really good, and just a really good arcade port. You'll notice on some of these games I'm showing, well, obviously a few are disc only, about maybe 20 or 30 of my set is disc only, but they have these labels on them that I really can't pull off because I'll end up damaging the discs. These are from a company called M&M Video that was going out of business locally, and but previous to them going out of business, they were getting rid of old games, and I went in and just found a bunch of stuff I was missing from my set. I should probably move the camera so you don't see my dad and the dog walking back and forth the whole time, huh? So there we go. So they were getting rid of stuff, and $5, this and that. So I bought some games I didn't have. I bought some games that I knew were worth a little more money, and then I would sell them and pick up more games that I needed. Another one, and this is my favorite rendition of this on the Sega CD, again before MAME and arcade emulators and such, and that's Final Fight CD. The Super Nintendo had a good version of Final Fight, but it didn't have two-player, I believe. This one did, and it looks really good, it sounds really good. This is the definitive version everyone talks about. So even though people tend to knock the Sega CD and talk about it has no games, everything's full motion video, there's a lot of good titles in here that if you are a fighting fan, a role-playing fan, you'll find stuff. This is a classic system. There's a lot of classic games that some people overlooked, or that eventually got re-released and people forgot started on the Sega CD, or got ported and more popular on the Sega CD, I should say, in certain circumstances. Another good one is Samurai Showdown. The sprites aren't huge or as big as the arcade version from what I recall, but good game. More of a defensive fighting game, not offensive like, let's say, Street Fighter, which was weird because Street Fighter never got a release on the Sega CD. I thought that would have been a really cool, like a Super Street Fighter Turbo type thing, you know? So that kind of stinks. Another good one, which is pretty expensive, I think, is Fatal Fury Special. And this game was pretty good. Again, the sprites aren't as big as the arcade version, but I think it's a good rendition. It's not the best, but if you don't have any Fatal Fury games, or if you really are a fan of the series and you played it on Super Nintendo or Genesis, this is definitely an upgrade to that. So check out Fatal Fury Special. This game always, you know, people always looked at it, myself included, as, oh, it's a Street Fighter knockoff. It's really not. It plays so different. If you go in playing with Street Fighter, you get your ass handed to you. You really have to learn the game and get good. One of the other things everyone usually talks about here is the Sega Classics Arcade Collection, which has a really good set of games. It's 2 discs, and the first one is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which was not an arcade game that I'm aware of because it's full motion video. The second disc is the Sega Classics Arcade Collection, which comes with Revenge of Shinobi, which is a great game, Streets of Rage, which is a great game, Columns, which is a great game I like more than Tetris, mind you, and Golden Axe, which was in the arcades. So, I don't know if all of them were. I know there was a Shinobi in the arcade. I don't recall if Streets of Rage was just a home game. But anyway, Golden Axe was really good. Good port. I have a feeling this one might just be one player. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but still a good game. Golden Axe is great. If you haven't played it, think of like a medieval version, like, you know, elves and wizards of something like Final Fight. Now we're going to get into the interesting ones. Even though the Sega CD did a lot of full motion video, and nowadays it looks a little, you know, worse for wear. It's in a small screen usually because they didn't have the power to have full screen, or it's dithered and kind of the colors are off because they only had a limited amount of color palette. You have games like this, Space Ace and Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair has a hair stuck to it because there's probably glue somewhere on it. So, Dragon's Lair pretty much got released on everything now. It's even on DVD players. But back then, you know, it was really cool to take something out of the arcade that looked straight up like you're playing a cartoon, a very difficult cartoon, mind you, and port it over to your home console. It was something really different. And again, even if you look at the screenshots on the back, this is Space Ace. You could see it's a little blurry, a little washed out. I don't even know if these are the screenshots from this version. It might be a, you know, Laserdisc version. But I think it's a port from the Laserdisc versions over to the Sega CD. These games are always very difficult for me, which is funny because I usually like games like this. But, you know, to get stuff like this on the home console was really cool back then. And let's see, we got a few more left here. Is it this one? I'm 99% sure this was in the arcade, but you know what? Let's throw that in at the end. So we got these here. We got getting up to the shooters, which everyone usually likes. Mad Dog McCree 1 and 2. These were big for me in the arcade, especially the first one. I don't know if you remember. It was like I think it was blue, a gun. You pick up the gun and shoot at the screen, and it looked like a movie. You know, all the characters would come out, full motion video. It looked real. And they would pop up and you'd have to shoot them before they shot you. It was pretty difficult, and that was the point. They wanted to eat your quarters and just keep making money. So I played the first one quite a few times, but I was never good at it. I eventually picked up 1 and 2 on the Sega CD. I prefer number 2. I find it to be a little, I don't know, more interesting or goofier in ways. There's a point where you can pick a different guide. There's different guides. There's a Native American dude, a woman, and like an old man with glasses, and you can pick them and then go through the level differently. So I thought that was really cool. I played through number 2 a lot with a buddy of mine and his brother, my friend Nicky, and we just never could beat it. I mean, I got so far, but never could beat it. It's one of the, like I said, it's those games that they really want to eat your quarters. Yeah, this is the arcade smash hit, so yes, I would assume this was in the arcade as well. And that's Crime Patrol. This is one you don't hear a lot about. Another full motion video shooter along the lines of Mad Dog McCree or Who Shot Johnny Rock. And if you like that B-movie cheesy aspect, which the Sega CD totally embraces between its, you know, full live action stuff going on and the cheesy acting and the, you know, not so great full motion video for now. For the time, I thought it looked great. When it first came out, I was like, holy crap, I'm playing a movie, you know? Because VHS wasn't that far off. Okay, it was better, but it wasn't like night and day compared to the Sega CD. Now, it definitely is, you know, with Blu-rays and such. So, Crime Patrol's one you don't usually hear a lot about. I'm not sure of the price on this one, but another cool thing about most of these is they were all, or most of them were, 2 players. So you'd have 2 guns or 2 controllers, and you'd be able to play this. They all use the, what was the game gun, the Menacer. I don't have a Menacer, sadly, but I also don't have a TV that can support the Menacer because they don't work on new LCDs and LEDs. They only work on old CRTs. Sticking in the shooting genre, but not full motion video, at least on this, well, this one kind of touches upon that. Lethal Enforcers 2. I also have Lethal Enforcers 1. It's loose, it's in a regular jewel case, so I was like, you know, what's the point of really showing it now that I showed the rest in the jewel case? You kind of get the idea, you know. Also 2 players, great cartoony. This one was more like cartoony than the first one, but again, pretty cool to have something like this out of the arcade, you know, an arcade shooter, easier than something like Mad Dog McCree or, you know, Crime Patrol. But really cool set of games. Everyone kind of knows what Lethal Enforcers is, and these versions really expanded on the original releases. I know the first one was on Genesis, I think. I think it came out on a couple consoles. So, and then here's one of the best arcade releases. That you can see has a sticker from Blockbuster on the back, and that is Road Avenger. Pretty good, I would say, even for now, quality full motion video. Again, I think it's shrunken down. It's not like full screen. Everything's always kind of shrunken down to some extent. And again, you're pretty much playing a cartoon. You need some really good reflexes to push the buttons really quickly when the prompts come up on the screen, because if you miss the prompts, you die. A lot of Sega CD games meshed full motion video with QuickTime events like Shenmue. So Shenmue really has probably a lot of inspiration in that regard to Sega CD titles, or something like Heavy Rain, or what's the other one I played? It sort of reminded me of a Sega CD game. Life is Strange was excellent, but again, something like that. These aren't story driven though, with like point and click. This is again like a racing game. You're driving around trying to escape people or catch people, and you have to go left, right, and push buttons at the right time, and then you see like a really cool scene of a car jumping. But right when you think you're like, oh, I did it, boom, another fucking button press comes up, and if you don't push it in time, you end up getting flattened. So, really great arcade games, ported over to the Sega CD. Things that people don't usually talk about because they're used to banging on the system and just making fun of the full motion video. So check out these arcade games if you don't have them, or maybe you have an older version and you want to upgrade them a little bit. Thanks guys for watching. It's Vampire Mike from Sega CD Universe. Be good.